All right. This audio should be much better. So, let's see. It is now 4:30 a.m. and I'm here recording because I was rolling around in bed for maybe about an hour and a half. And after setting on my isochronic tones and a 45-minute sleep timer, it just became apparent I'm not sleeping right now, and that is okay. I have heard from a speaker on Greg Carlwood's wonderful podcast, The Higher Side Chats. It's a kind of got a myriad of guests speaking on just different alternative science and people might say fringe science or conspiracy nonsense, but I see it much more as exploring the alternatives, and there's a lot of very, very well accredited people on there, researchers, scientists, occultists, all sorts of folk from different walks of life on there talking. And anyway, I've heard one guest mention that we have psychic facilities that might act in ways that our physical body don't understand. And that if you are being awoken for what seems like no reason, there might be a reason. And I think that there's several different reasons that might be. But in this case, I was laying in bed and I just couldn't get the words spirituality and revival out of my head. And I've had experiences with this last year of being awoken at 3 a.m. generally, right? It seems like that is the time, the so-called witching hour, when the veil is the thinnest and when we might be most easily accessed by spirit. I've had this occasion last year a bunch. We were living off grid, a lot of us working at this saloon far off the beaten path outside of a major national park. We were living in this little chunk of maybe 5 or 6 acres of woods that the owner of the saloon also owned, and it was very, very quiet. It was probably one of the most remote and quiet places I've ever had the good fortune to live in. And as quiet as it was physically, after several weeks you could start to tell and feel that it was not quiet spiritually, that there was a lot going on in this area. And as I learned more about the history and just observed the land, I could see that there was wildlife paths. It was a corridor, definitely, for wildlife to travel north-south, right along the eastern face of this, not quite a mountain, but a rather large hill. And it was definitely heavily used by the wildlife, and you could tell that it's been that way for a while, especially since roads were put in. There's one dirt road and another little bar, saloon type business on the road right there next to where we were staying. And so you could tell that the wildlife had been pushed up against this eastern slope, and that is their migratory path. If these things have been using this path for as long as they've been around, and as long as animals have been migrating this corridor, then I have reason to believe that it contains a rather large spiritual energy. I think that they aren't the only things moving through that pathway. Like I say, learning more about the history, I've talked with some of the natives in the area, and they mentioned that it was an old riverbank, essentially, that the river that maybe was a mile away, a mile or two perhaps, not very far, but this river that is now a mile or two away used to run right up against the side of this mountain, and that their tribe used to traverse this path as well. It was part of their migration, and there was a larger trail system north that they would link up with. So if this was an ancient migratory pathway, like I say, I just have reason to believe, and an intuitive belief, that there are spirits traveling amongst that as well. And I bring all of this up because there were several occasions where I would wake up around 2:30, 3 a.m. and just wouldn't be able to get back to sleep. And I lived at least 100 yards from my nearest neighbor. They were all in little shanty tents and sheds in a kind of collective group living space, a little village, if you will. But at me in my RV, I had, a little more room and a little more luxury, if I may add. But yeah, I would wake up at times not knowing why, and find it interesting that it was generally around that hour, the thinnest veil, that 3 a.m. witching hour. And it would only become increasingly more interesting when I would hear coworkers talking the next day that they too could not sleep, or were awoken in the middle of the night from very odd dreams. Or one young man even talked of hearing things outside his tent, hearing what sounded like footsteps, but not footsteps that came or went, but footsteps that just appeared right behind him, behind the thin canvas wall of his tent. And that is unnerving. And he wasn't the only one to have had experiences like that. One gal, my friend, had similar experiences and said that she had smelled what smelled like a dirty person. That is classic Bigfoot shit, if I may add, but not to go too far down that hole. I just think that if we are all experiencing this at the same time, there are probably spiritual faculties at work within each of us that are alerting our physical bodies that you should not be asleep right now. For one reason or another, it is time to wake up. So that's a little more of a spooky connotation on the concept I'm trying to share. But within tonight's context, I really think that my spirit, my personal attachment to spirit, was wanting me to wake up and share this thought of spiritual revival. I have two good friends that I'm very grateful to have the conversations with that I do, but we talk a lot about modern mysticism. And I think that this is a time that a lot of us are awakening to thoughts of spirituality and what may really be going on under the hood of reality that maybe many of us haven't been comfortable with in the past. They might be new modes of thought for a lot of us, and we don't have any bearings on this. We don't really have teachers. We don't have elders in this sense. We don't have medicine men or shaman. We're spiritually abandoned. And that's a heavy pill to swallow when you really start to care about this lifestyle and your attachment to spirit. But I think that's what makes this conversation even more important, is that we are pioneers in this sense. Not that it hasn't been done before or that people haven't had these thoughts before, but that we are a modern society that has been severed from this connection. Our trainings in rationality and physical sciences, they have put up blinders to this side of the world. And I think it's been to a great disservice to the human experience. So I, for one, am grateful that I have been reconnecting with this side of myself and taking back my understandings of spirituality. Because I was raised in a non-denominational Christian upbringing, like most Westerners, I guess like most people. Anyone that's been colonized has, I think, exposure to this understanding of spirituality, that it's a controlled and rigid understanding of the etheric world. And I just know that I took issue with that growing up. I was always very interested in religions and in spirituality, but the confines that they found themselves in this modern day and age, they just didn't suit me, and I found myself actively revolting against those, so much so that I think that's what spurred my bout of atheism and agnosticism, was this discomfort with the way that spirituality was being handled. And I do believe that that was on purpose. I think that this has been a very concerted effort to hide our spiritual ability, our true connection to Source. I don't think that living a spiritual life is one that corporate bodies would rather for their constituents, their consumers. I think that it makes life a lot more free than one who would like to put a price tag on things would want. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be reclaiming my attachment to spirit and exploring what that means for me, because I think we all have a very unique experience, a unique understanding for what the etheric world means to us and how we connect to it. So, yeah, all of this to say, I really want to encourage those who are having perhaps uncomfortable spiritual thoughts, or are exploring new methods of thinking and believing about the world that may go against the grain of the lifestyle that they're trying to put forth. Because I know it did for me. I know I spent many years denying myself the access to these spiritual thoughts because I had bills to pay. I had, girlfriend to take care of, or pets to keep, or work to go to, classes to study for. I mean, there's not that any of these things are bad, but as they pile up and a corporeal existence becomes the most important one, it makes it very difficult to think about what happens after life, or in between life, if you believe in the Michael Newton life between life model. So, yeah, I just want to encourage those that are having these thoughts to explore them. And you don't need to run off to the woods and live out of an RV like I am, but it has made this journey a lot easier. Again, maybe not physically easier. It's making some physical stuff a little tougher, but it is making my journey in search of spirit a lot more fulfilling and a lot more possible. I don't think I know I wouldn't be in the same mindset that I am now if I had remained in town, demanded of my 9 to 5 to show up, shut up, and put out some results. So yeah, that kind of sums up the thoughts for tonight. I just want to encourage all of us to become the modern mystics that we so long for, because I know that I've had the thought of, where are all the elders? Where have the elders gone? Because I feel like I'm living in a world surrounded by old people, not elders. And that's not to say they're not out there. I have met a few who I would consider very large parts of my path. But they are few and far between, and I hope to become one of them and one of many more that are helping the folks that are beginning this journey. I hope to help them in finding comfort in their own path towards spirituality. So if that may be you, then good luck out there, man, because it's a bumpy road. Very fulfilling, but it can be a bumpy ride. So I think that we need to encourage each other and offer each other some solace and some comfort amidst the storms that are coming ahead of us. I think that there's a beautiful shining light that we're all heading towards, and we have a wonderful reality that we can create. And I also think it's going to come at some discomfort and some corporeal costs. So good luck out there. And if you need any sort of assistance, this is the place to find it. I'm hoping to curate a place where we can have these conversations and we can support each other in this endeavor. So till then, stay safe out there and keep uncovering your spiritual identity. All right, that's all from me. I'm going to go try and get some sleep, and I'll be seeing you guys later.